Hallo, ich habe heute das Thema wieder der dunklen Seite. Es ist ja einfach eine Realität, dass wir hier in der Dualität leben und dass es Licht und dass es Schatten gibt. Und ich beschäftige mich viel, wie kommt es zu dem Schatten, wie sieht der Schatten aus, wie transformiere ich den Schatten, wie gehe ich mit dem Schatten in mir um. Und letztendlich ist es so, wenn ich eins nach all den Jahren verstanden habe, ist, dass der Schatten, das Dunkle, das Böse sich immer durch Schmerz gebiert. Und ich habe ein unheimlich spannendes Video, das ich euch komplett anhängen werde. Ich rate es, also ihr dürft machen, was ihr wollt, aber es ist für die Studien, wen es interessiert, das Verhältnis zwischen Licht und Schatten und wie kommt es zustande und wie löst sich das Ganze auf. Für den ist es ein unfassbares Zeugnis. Also es ist ein Geschenk, dieses Video, das es da gibt. Es geht um ein kleines Mädchen, das in der Kindheit übelst misshandelt wurde, sexuell missbraucht und richtig böse geworden ist. Und es gibt eben Aufnahmen, Interviewaufnahmen von diesem wirklich, wirklich bösen Kind. Ich muss gestehen, als ich das gesehen habe, ich habe gedacht, da gibt es ja gar keine Hoffnung. Und dieses Kind kommt dann, okay, ihr seht, was dann passiert. Also 2 Punkte, die ich da anführen möchte, werden in diesem Video belegt. Zum einen sage ich euch immer, die Essenz, die wir teilen, ist die gleiche. Das heißt, der Böse ist der gefallene, im Schmerz gefallene Bruder. Und in diesem Video seht ihr so volltrefflich, wie eine Seele durch Schmerz verdunkelt und wirklich bösartig wird. Also und wieder schön wird. Und das ist das Krasse. Also ihr seht diese Seele im hässlichen Zustand, in der Dunkelheit, im Töten wollen, im Missbrauchen wollen. Und ihr seht diese Seele gerettet, im lichten Zustand. Und das bestätigt die These, der ich auf die Schliche gekommen bin, dass es eben der Schmerz ist, durch den wir fallen. Und das andere ist, was ich eben auch gelernt habe über die Jahre Beobachtung, was man in dem Film zeigt, wenn man von außen mit jemandem arbeiten möchte, der im Schmerz gefangen ist, der sogenannte Böse ist, der lügt, der betrügt, der manipuliert, der narzisstisch ist, der gewissenlos ist, der euch glauben lässt, eine bestimmte Person zu sein, die er gar nicht ist und euch Energie raubt, Zeit raubt, Geld raubt, Ansehen raubt, Reputation raubt, die Freiheit raubt, das Leben raubt. Wenn man mit so jemandem umgehen will, habe ich 2 Sachen gelernt und die sieht man eben in dem Video speziell. Harte Grenzen, jedes Mal. Man muss die Manipulation genau verstehen, man muss immer genau wissen, was der gerade macht, wo der lügt, wo der manipuliert, was ist richtiges Verhalten, was ist falsches Verhalten. Und ich habe das mehrfach in der Realität angewandt, dieses klare Grenzen setzen, bei mir nicht, nein, 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 zack, zack. Und diese Grenzen setzt man nicht mit, du, ich muss mal mit dir reden darüber, sondern die setzt du in dem Moment der Grenzüberschreitung, setzt du die Grenze, wie in einem Rudel Hunde, wo die sich gegenseitig anbeißen zum Beispiel oder gegenseitig stoßen, so setzt man Grenzen, dass der andere das auch wirklich spürt. Und authentisch und richtig und ohne Aggression, da geht es wirklich nur darum, den anderen einzuordnen in, nein, das ist falsches Verhalten, das ist richtiges Verhalten. Und ab dem Moment, wo der schöne Anteil der Seele blüht, seid ihr in Liebe da. Das hat dieses Mädchen gerettet. Also es ist ein eindrückliches Zeugnis. Und jetzt möchte ich euch noch was an den Rat geben, an die Hand geben, weil wir alle, ohne Ausnahme, ich kenne niemanden, bei dem das nicht so ist. Also ich habe bisher keinen kennengelernt, wenige. Also ich habe keinen kennengelernt, der nicht verschiedene Anteile von geschlossenem Herzen hat. Das heißt, wenn ihr nicht komplett im Mitgefühl seid. Das heißt, wenn ihr arrogant seid. Das heißt, wenn ihr hochmütig seid. Das heißt, wenn ihr lügt. Das heißt, wenn ihr neidisch seid. wenn ihr über andere lästert, wenn euch instinktiv über andere lachen wollt. All diese nicht heiligen Eigenschaften, nennen wir es einfach mal heilig, unheilig heilige Eigenschaften. All das, wo ihr jetzt überlegt, würde das ein Engel machen oder würde das Christus machen? Würde Christus über jemanden lachen, weil er eine lange Nase hat, oder über jemanden lästern, weil er sonst einen Fehler hat? Wahrscheinlich nicht. All diese unheiligen Eigenschaften an euch, und die sind zahlreich, wenn ihr die Augen für euch aufmacht, die kommen alle zahlreich, also ich soll nicht so übertreiben, sagt die Führung, aber also ich arbeite schon viel an mir und ich finde immer noch dunkle Flecken. Und wann immer ihr das merkt, dass ihr ein geschlossenes Herz habt, dann gibt es eine Methode, und ich erkläre euch diese Methode. Ich erkläre euch, wie ihr eure Seele wieder Licht macht, wie ihr aus dem Schatten raustretet. Es ist einfach nun mal so, dass die spirituelle Arbeit Arbeit ist. Es ist Arbeit, 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 Arbeit. Und ihr werdet, ja, es ist Arbeit. Und bei mir ist es so, ich hatte wirklich, also vor einem Jahr war das circa 1,5 Jahren, war mein Herz einfach nur noch eine verbitterte Masse. Also es war wirklich nur noch, es hat wehgetan, es hat gekrampft, richtig gekrampft. Es war eine richtig verbitterte Masse wegen Schmerzen, emotionaler Liebesschmerzen in erster Linie. Also es war wirklich nur noch ein, einfach eine verbitterte Masse. Und ich saß im Yogananda Center in einer richtig schönen Feier. Es war irgendeine Gedenkfeier für Lahiri Mahashaya oder für Sri Yukteswar, ich weiß es nicht. Und alle waren da und haben gesungen. Es war richtig intensiv. Und ich hatte dann zur göttlichen Mutter gebetet, und ich war das gewöhnt. Ich bitte die göttliche Mutter etwas und sie drückt auf den Knopf und ich kriege das dann. Und dann bitte ich die göttliche Mutter, bitte göttliche Mutter, schenk mir mein freies Herz wieder. Und dann gehe ich nach Hause, liege da, eine halbe Stunde, oder ich bin im Runterkommen, und dann merke ich, wie eine Schmerzerinnerung von diesem Jahr nach dem anderen hochkommt. Eine Schmerzerinnerung nach dem anderen kommt hoch. Und ich lasse die hoch. Ich habe dann verstanden, um was es ging. Also ich habe dann gecheckt, dass ich angeleitet werde. Und es ist nämlich so, ich erkläre euch das, wenn ihr im Schock seid, also es passiert etwas Traumatisches, was euch zutiefst verletzt im Herzen, und da ist die Liebe das, was uns am meisten schmerzt, glaube ich. Also es gibt natürlich, ja, ich glaube, es sind viele Menschen gefallen durch die Liebe. Es schmerzt sehr stark. Und aber es ist zum Beispiel einfach Ablehnung durch andere. Das ist auch ein Liebesverbrechen sozusagen. Also wo die Liebe mangelt. Schocks, Traumata-Schocks. In dem Moment erstarrt ihr und fühlt nicht das Gefühl, das eigentlich da ist. Die Trauer, die Verletzung, die Schmerzen. Ja. Und das speichert sich bei euch in den Chakren und verkrampft die Chakren, und ihr werdet böse. Ihr fangt an, über andere zu lästern. Ihr fangt an, euch über andere zu erheben. Ihr fangt an, arrogant zu werden. Ihr fangt an, euch als was Besseres zu sehen. Ihr fangt an zu lügen. Ihr fangt an zu manipulieren. Ihr fangt an, Leute um den Finger zu wickeln. Und diese in den Chakren abgespeicherten Emotionen, die müssen freigelassen werden, damit ihr wieder ein freies Herz habt. Und das macht ihr, so wie mir die göttliche Mutter das gezeigt hat. Das heißt, ihr geht durch eine Schmerzerinnerung nach der anderen durch. An diesem Abend war das bestimmt, also gefühlt bin ich 2 Stunden durch Schmerzen gegangen. Und so mache ich das immer jetzt. Also das ist bei mir, das mache ich ein paar Mal, also ich mache das oft. Wann immer ich merke, also ich kann das nur in Zusammenarbeit mit dem Göttlichen machen. Ich komme selbst ich komme nicht an diesen vergrabenen Schmerz ran. Dieser vergrabene Schmerz, an den komme ich nicht ran. wenn ich normalerweise bei mir ist immer alles super duper eigentlich, also wenn ich jetzt nicht krasse Aufgaben habe oder so, sondern ich habe immer so ein vordergründig fröhliches Wesen und drunter ist der Schmerz. Und diesen Schmerz, den merken die meisten gar nicht mehr. Also Psychopathen wissen gar nicht, dass sie in Schmerz gebadet sind. Und was ich noch ganz wichtig zu sagen finde, dieses Mädchen, das ihr seht, die wurde dieses Leben gerettet. Aber bei den meisten, die sozusagen eine böse Karriere in dieser Menschheit haben, sind diese harten Prozesse, diese krass traumatischen Erlebnisse schon in Reinkarnationen davor passiert. Und um seine Seele zu retten, ins Licht zu bringen, in eine lichte, göttliche Seele zu haben, musst du all diesen Schmerz, dich von diesem Schmerz befreien. Und wann immer ich das merke, dass ich über jemanden lache, dass ich jemanden hässlich finde auf der Straße, das sind so instinktive, kurze Momente, die ich wahrnehme, wenn ich mich freue über Unglück von anderen zum Beispiel. Das sind so Dinge, die mir bei mir auffallen, die dunkel sind. Und wenn ich das merke, es ist mir peinlich, aber es ist passiert und es ist etwas Instinktives, das kann ich gar nicht steuern. Es ist nicht so, dass ich absichtlich über jemanden läster, sondern es ist, ich sehe jemanden auf der Straße, der irgendwie ein irrwitziges Kostüm anhat, das einfach nur lächerlich aussieht. Ja, aber das verletzt die andere Seele und die andere Seele kriegt das mit und es ist die eigene Schlechtigkeit. Weil die gute Seele würde sehen, dass vor sich eine verletzte Seele ist, die sich verirrt hat und die würde nicht über diese Seele lachen. Also wir reden von diesen Kategorien, also woran wir uns orientieren. Wir orientieren uns nicht an den irdischen Kriterien, sondern wir orientieren uns an den übermenschlichen, an den himmlischen, an den göttlichen Kriterien. Also wann immer ihr merkt, dass ihr dunkle Charakterzüge an euch wahrnehmt, geht an die göttliche Entität, mit der ihr, und bitte nur göttliche Entitäten, keine Fantasiewesen, nur göttliche Entitäten, wirklich klar mit Entitäten mit Reputation, Meister, von deren Leben ihr wisst, Christus, die göttliche Mutter, hohe Engelwesen, von denen ihr wirklich wisst, dass es Engel sind und nicht von der satanischen Seite Fantasiewesen eingestreut, die euch verwirren. Also geht direkt an die Quelle. Also ich wende mich göttliche Mutter oder Christus und bitte darum, ich habe dort einen dunklen Fleck, ich bitte darum, dass mir geholfen wird, den loszulassen. Und dann beginnt die Heulerei. Kann 1 Tag, 2 Tage dauern, dann beginnt der Schmerz, dann kommt alles hoch und dann sage ich euch das Wichtigste, und das ist ein Geheimnis, also das ist so krass wichtig, es kommen Dinge auch, die euch wütend machen. Ihr dürft aber nicht in die Wut gehen, ihr müsst immer im Frieden bleiben, egal was euch passiert, egal was euch jemand antut, ihr müsst im Frieden bleiben. Und wenn diese Schmerzerinnerung hochkommt, instinktiv gehen wir in die Wut rein. Das seht ihr an dem Kind jetzt auch. Das Kind zerstört alles, möchte umbringen, möchte sexuell missbrauchen. Also instinktiv, der Mensch, der verletzt wird, geht in die Gegenaggression. Das dürft ihr nicht. Wenn diese schmerzhafte Situation hochkommt, kontrolliert mit all eurer Kraft eure Gedanken und bleibt nur bei dem Gefühl. Es geht nur darum, dass diese Energie, die in euren Chakren liegt, dass die sich freisetzt. Und da habt ihr echt viel Arbeit. Da habt ihr wirklich viel Arbeit. Also ich bin, wenn man die verschiedenen Grade der Seelenentwicklung anguckt, habe ich ziemlich Glück. Also ich bin nicht tief gefallen und ich habe trotzdem viel Arbeit. Und natürlich auch einen hohen Anspruch. Ja, ich lade euch dazu ein, frei zu werden. Also, dass ihr wirklich göttlich werdet. Und ich kann euch nur sagen, also ich habe das intensiv gemacht in der Zeit, wo mein Herz so verbittert war. Und es sind wirklich dunkle, ich sag da Pupse rausgekommen, also dunkle Gewitterwolken, dunkle Gedankenwolken. Und das Fiese daran ist, also ich sage das jetzt nochmal so klar, weil das ist einfach Gottes Welt und die ist ganz schön brutal. Wenn man durch Schmerz gefallen ist, hat man dunkle Gedanken, dunkle Handlungen und dunkle Emotionen. Und die kommen wieder auf euch zurück und reißen euch in noch einen tieferen Strudel. Also fangt jetzt an zu arbeiten, dass ihr den Strudel nach oben geht. Und hilft allen anderen daraus.
Are people afraid of you, Beth?
Beth Thomas was just 6 years old when her deep blue eyes shocked American society after this documentary about her life was broadcasted on television. Undaunted and bored, Beth recounted how she tried to murder her younger brother when she was going to kill her parents, and why she had stolen knives from the family kitchen. Despite her short life, she had suffered brutal abuse from her biological father. The girl had been diagnosed with reactive attachment disorder, RAD, a condition in which young children fail to establish healthy bonds with their parents or caregivers due to extreme abuse. Her signs of psychopathy had been developed as a form of self-defense against the outside world. Beth Thomas was adopted at 19 months old, along with their 7-month-old brother Jonathan, by Tim and Julie, a conservative American couple who had been married for 12 years but were unable to have children of their own. Although Tim mentioned not needing children to make their lives complete, they decided to venture into adoption as a means of sharing and transmitting the completeness. Julie seemed more excited about the idea of adoption and mentioned that it was a dream shared by both. Finally, in 1984, they were notified of the availability of adoption of Beth and Jonathan. They were surprised by the speed of the process, and they were told that they were normal and healthy, as if they were children without a past, like 2 blank books. Later, they obtained information regarding the living conditions that both children had before their adoption, and discovered that the children lived in a despicable environment. Both showed signs of having been mistreated and abandoned, and their food and hygiene conditions were precarious. Beth showed signs of having been sexually abused by her father and could spend a whole day alone with a box of cereal to eat. Jonathan lived reclining in a crib surrounded by urine and dirty diapers, and his head was misshapen from having spent so much time in the same pose. While his back was completely flat, his forehead had bumps. The boy was 7 months old, and the lack of stimulation had affected his abilities. He could not raise his head or turn around. After a short time, they noticed that Beth began to show aggressive and sexual behaviors that were gradually increasing, mainly directed towards her brother, but also towards her adoptive parents and domestic animals, through hitting, kicking, the use of pins to prick them, pinching her brother's genitals, self-injurious genital masturbation in public places, and confessions about wanting to kill Jonathan, Tim, and Julie. When they were overwhelmed by this situation, they decided to take Beth to Dr. Ken Maggot, a clinical psychologist specializing in abused children, who conducted this interview with Beth, presented in the video when she was 6.5 years old.
Who's afraid of you, Beth?
John.
Your brother. And why is your brother afraid of you?
Because I hurt him so much.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And at nighttime, what do your parents do to your door?
Lock it shut.
Why do they lock it shut?
Because they don't want me to hurt John.
Right. And they're kind of afraid of hurting John? Of you hurting John?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Are they afraid that you might hurt them?
Yep.
During the session with the therapist, Beth was distant and jaded. She seemed destined to be a murderer and lacking any ounce of empathy.
Would you, Beth?
Mm-hmm.
When would you do it?
Nighttime.
Okay. Why would you do nighttime?
Because I don't like them seeing me do it. But they can feel me do it.
Mm-hmm. And what would you do to him, Beth? Okay. What would you stab him with?
A knife.
Do you ever stick pins in people?
Mm-hmm.
Who?
My brother.
Okay. Do you do it a little bit or a lot?
A lot.
Okay. And what are you trying to do to your brother?
Kill him.
Why do you want your brother to die?
Because I was hurt so bad, and I don't want to be around people.
Okay. Who else would you like to stick pins into?
Mommy and Daddy.
What would you like to have happen to them?
Die.
Jesus could have lived to save Israel, yet he chose to die to save the world.
Tim is the minister of a small Methodist church in the South. He and his wife Julie have been married for 12 years.
Jesus didn't say
Unable to have children of their own, they decided to adopt. In February of 1984, they received a call from the Department of Social Services telling them they had 2 children available for adoption. They were told that Beth, 19 months old, and her brother Jonathan, 7 months old, were normal and healthy.
We did not need children to make our lives complete. We felt secure in ourselves and secure in our relationship, but we wanted to share that with somebody else. And we felt like we had a lot to pass on to a child, and that was what we really wanted to do. And when the phone call came, it was like, at last it's here.
It seemed like a miracle. It had happened so quick. We'd heard of couples having to wait 5, 10 years on a child, and here we had 2 young children. It was like the answer to our dream.
Their dream became a nightmare when they realized that Beth and Jonathan had severe emotional problems.
Beth and her brother Eric were children of a dysfunctional family. His father was an alcoholic and his mother neglected early child rearing, also passing away a year and a half after Eric's birth. They had an older sister, but she was hardly home since she worked in a strip club. Her father sexually abused Beth from birth to 3 years, at which point social services took care of the children.
We had the kids with us, Beth and her younger brother John, for probably a couple of months until we began to learn something about their background and their past. And when we learned it, some things seemed to fall in place about her behavior and John's behavior. From several sources, we discovered that they didn't have enough food to eat. That perhaps even Beth went all day maybe with just a box of Kick cereal. John himself was found in a bassinet with little patches of urine all over it and a dirty diaper and a couple of bottles at his feet that had curdled milk, and the back of his head was completely flat. The front of his head had bulged out, and at 7 months he couldn't raise his head, couldn't roll over. He was just had no stimulation, and we think perhaps that had happened to Beth, and it wasn't very long until she began showing some signs of perhaps even some abuse. There was a nightmare that she had, and the nightmare was about a man who was falling on her and hurting her with a part of himself.
Tell me about your birth father. What was that nightmare like?
When he touched my vagina
Okay.
until it bled, hurt it a lot until it bled, and wouldn't feed me a lot. He'd hit on me, wouldn't be very nice to me.
How old were you?
1.
And in your nightmare, what happens?
I get real scared.
Where are you in the nightmare? What happens in the dream?
I'm in the house, upstairs.
And then what happens, Beth?
When he comes upstairs and, hurt.
How do you feel when you talk about this?
Scared.
Where's your birth father? What's he doing?
He's right there, and there's his hand. His hand's right there.
Where?
Right there. You can't hardly see it because it's green.
What's it touching?
My vagina.
And what is your birth father doing?
Hurting it.
Your face looks sad. Can you tell me about that?
It's crying because there's dots of the tears.
When referring to the nightmares in which a man fell on her and hurt her, Beth implies that she was sexually assaulted by her father. The repercussions of the abuse she had suffered as a child had led to uncontrollable anger.
Beth had endured severe neglect and abuse as a child. Her birth mother died when she was 1. Because of these early childhood experiences, Beth never developed a sense of conscience, love, or trust for anyone. The early sexual abuse by her birth father would cause her to exhibit inappropriate sexual behavior, especially toward her brother.
Does your brother have private parts?
Yeah.
Yeah? What is his private parts?
Penis and butt.
Mm-hmm. And what do you do with your brother with his private parts, Beth?
I heard it.
Tell me about it. What do you do?
Now, I pinch it, squeeze it, kick it.
When you do things to your brother's private parts, what does he say?
Stop.
Okay, tell me that.
Well, he says stop, but I don't stop.
Do you hurt him?
Mm-hmm. A lot.
Okay. And would you like to do that to other boys?
When I caught her with Jonathan one morning, she was molesting him. He was crying and his pants were down, and I said, Beth, what's happening? And she said, I pulled his penis and put my finger up his anus. And I said, didn't he say to stop? And she said, yeah, he did. And I said, did you? And she said, no.
Beth and her brother Jonathan had lived alongside their biological father in a state of total abandonment. Also, as a result of her pain, Beth sexually harassed her brother.
Have you ever rubbed your private parts?
Mm-hmm.
Do you do it a lot?
A lot.
How much do you do that?
Not every single day in Lexington. I did it every single day until it got real bad and messed up, and I had to go to the doctor, and I did not like it.
What do you mean by real bad?
Well, it looked real raw, got all kinds of boo-boos on it, germs, a lot of stuff on my hand.
And it bled?
Mm-hmm.
She started to masturbate at inappropriate times. I remember one time, specifically, when we were at the hospital waiting for Tim to come out. He was there visiting, and Beth and John were in the back seat, and I turned around, and she had her legs spread and was masturbating in a public parking lot. And I had tried to explain to her numerous times before that that's private area. You don't do it in public places. And gone over that with her, and it never seemed to faze her. And
Julie, how often would your daughter masturbate?
daily, constantly.
Do you have animals, Beth?
4 of them.
Can you tell me their names?
Clyde, Shuggy, Darcy, and Annie. And Daddy said a day ago that there was a stray cat who did not have a home, so Daddy was taking care of it and took it to the vet when he had his flight to go.
And what do you do to the animals, Beth?
Stick them with pins.
Do you stick them a little bit or a lot?
A lot.
What are you trying to do to the animals, Beth?
Kill them.
What do they do when you stick them with the pins?
Well, Annie cries. She's a dog.
She got baby birds down out of the nest, and we thought maybe she was just curious. So we explained that she could hurt them, put them back, and went through a whole sitting down and talking to her about the problem of it. And the next day we went out to check the baby birds, and they were on the ground dead with their necks broken.
Let's talk about what happened once when you were smaller, when you found some baby birds in a tree. What did you do then?
I took them out.
Mm-hmm. And what did Mom say to you?
That the mother will not come back if somebody touches her baby.
Mm-hmm. Are the baby birds kind of small? Can you describe them for me?
Well, they don't have their eyes open, but they can hear me, and they look up.
Are they kind of helpless? Little baby birds? Can they fly?
No.
Can they run away?
Yes.
They can? Are they easy to catch or hard to catch?
Hard.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to remember. With the baby birds, what did you do?
Took them out of the tree.
And what did you do with them?
Played around too rough. Also, when at the end, I picked it up and I thought it was Dad, and I came to say, Mommy, is this bird dead? And she said, she called Daddy and said, Tim, and Daddy came and, I think I remember that they said yes.
Mm-hmm. And so did the little baby birds die?
I don't know.
You don't remember?
I just remember that I remember that Mommy and Daddy said the last bird we got was dead.
Mm-hmm. Do you know what Mom said to me? She said that all of them were dead. Did you squeeze them? Did Baby Beth squeeze them? You're doing a good job, honey. Go ahead and tell me what happened.
I squeezed them.
And what happened?
They died.
Beth also wanted to kill her parents with a knife, and although she had never killed a human being, she tortured family pets and even killed birds. The way she says it means she is oblivious of the pain she inflicts on others.
But this kind of aggression at our animals and even at her brother Jonathan was beginning to grow to such an excess that our life was miserable at home. John would cry in the mornings and say his stomach hurt. For the longest time, we thought maybe this child has some problem with his intestinal area, or maybe he has allergies, and so we tried to get all that checked out. Come to find out, Beth was coming out of her room and hitting him in the stomach. And so, as a last resort, just to protect him, we had to tie our door shut. So I guess for the last 3 or 4 months now, we've had to tie her in at night, sort of barricade her.
Other times, the girl waited until her parents did not see her to hit her younger brother hard in the stomach. In addition, she was sticking pins into him. The situation was unmanageable for the parents, who could not control the girl. To protect the brother, they placed a latch on Beth's room and locked her in at night to prevent her from continuing to do harm.
The repercussions of Beth's tragic childhood led to uncontrollable rage. Despite the love and nurturing of her adoptive parents, she took this rage out on herself, on her brother, and on them. Her acts of violence became more and more cruel and frightening.
Well, I noticed several, like paring knives in the kitchen, missing. And my first thought was Beth. And I felt a little guilty about it at first. I thought, nah. But I really didn't even mention it to her. They had been gone several weeks. She was sitting at the table drawing and mentioned to me, what do those knives look like that are gone, Mom? And I said, what knives, Beth? And she said, weren't they kind of silver and about this big? And I knew then, and then this little smile that's not a sweet smile, but a malicious type of smile. And I knew then, I thought, she's got them.
Tell me about the knives. Where did you get them?
From the drawer.
And Where else? Do you remember?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about it.
I got them from the dishwasher.
What kind of knives?
Big sharp ones.
And what do you want to do with those knives?
Kill John and Mommy with them, and Daddy.
Beth frankly admits that she wishes to kill both her adoptive parents. Her acts of violence were increasingly cruel and chilling, to the point where she now had the weapons to accomplish the killing.
And when Mommy asks you about where the knives are, what do you say?
I don't know where they are.
What did you think she might do with the knives?
My first thought was Jonathan.
And the reason we thought that was that by this time, she had tried to kill John on several occasions and openly admitted that.
In the basement, she was hitting his head against a cement floor. I heard his screams and ran down and had to literally pull her hands off, and she looked wild-eyed.
Did you get real mad at him? Did you hit his head real hard? Tell me about it. How many times did you do it? A lot? What was the floor like?
Cement.
And what happened to your brother? Tell me about it.
His head hurt real bad, but his chin, he had to have stitches in it.
Could you stop? Use your words, Beth.
No.
Okay. What was your brother doing when you were doing this?
Playing with the toys.
Okay. Was he asking you to stop when you were doing it? What was he saying?
He was saying, Beth, stop.
And what did you do?
That didn't stop. I just kept on hurting him.
What were you thinking when you were doing that?
Thinking of killing him.
How did you stop? What made you stop?
When I heard Peter walking across the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
It made me stop because I thought Mommy and Daddy were coming.
Okay. Did Mommy come? What did she do?
She sent me to my room.
Okay. And what if Mom didn't stop you? What would you have done?
Kept on doing it.
Beth's outbursts of violence were directed especially against Jonathan, who on one occasion had to be hospitalized after the girl repeatedly hit his head on a concrete floor in an attempt to take his life. If not for her parents, this would certainly have happened. It was clear now that Beth had a psychological problem.
And what about...
After evaluating the extent of Beth's psychological problems, Dr. McGid felt that for the well-being of the family, Beth needed to be temporarily separated from them. In April of 1989, her parents brought her to a special home with an expert at raising children with early attachment disorders, especially children who are dangerous to themselves and others.
I have children that have killed numerous times. Cold-blooded family members, neighbor children killed them. And they can do it. Makes my blood run cold just thinking about 9 years old. People don't think a 9-year-old is capable of cold-blooded murder, but they are. That attachment break does severe damage to the heart, the ability to care and the ability to love. If they don't care and they don't love, they're capable of anything. We're very strict about everything. Everything is completely monitored. We take complete control because a child who's unattached does not trust. And because they don't trust, they don't allow anybody to be boss of them. So we take complete control. They are not boss of anything. They have to ask to get a drink of water. They have to ask to go to the bathroom. They have to ask to leave our sight. Part of that is because we cannot trust them because of the damage that they've done before.
Worried about the situation, her adoptive parents tried to help her in different ways and took her to countless specialists. The aggressions were incessant to the point that it was impossible to continue a healthy life. Everything changed when they met the therapist Ken Magid, a clinical psychologist specializing in abused children and victims of serious abuse, so traumatized during the first years of life that they do not establish emotional ties with other people. The doctor worked with children who could not accept love, who had no conscience, and who could hurt and even kill without remorse. The proposal was an intensive behavior modification therapy, and part of the sessions with Beth were recorded and formed part of the documentary. After assessing the extent of Beth's psychological problems, the specialist decided that it was best to separate her from the rest of the family. In April 1989, the girl was taken to a specialized residence for children with attachment disorders that are a danger to themselves and others. There, Beth lived with minors who had murdered in cold blood. The therapy consisted of imposing extreme restrictions. Beth had to ask permission for everything, including drinking water and going to the bathroom. Part of the goal was to rebuild Beth's self-esteem so that she perceived herself as a person of value.
Beth, would you like to say grace, please?
Sure. Heavenly Father, thank you for this good day and everybody doing good. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen. They believe that they're evil. They believe they're from the devil. They believe that they are not a person of value. And we have to change that, and we have to build that from a child who's nothing, who's a bad kid in their own mind, to a child who's valuable and loving, and they see themselves as that.
You don't have to bite this.
When they do a chore well, we can say, you did a good job, you're a good worker. And then it just builds that self-esteem little by little so that they change the way that they see themselves.
Several months into treatment in this controlled environment, Beth had made progress, and her therapist decided to loosen some of the controls.
Anybody wants some more? I can.
Beth continued to show signs of improvement. She began to develop a sense of right and wrong. She seemed to respond to affection, was more outgoing.
Gosh, you don't have to like.
She went to public school, made friends at the local church, and even sang in the choir.
And you're going to go into Sunday school again this morning?
Yeah.
And get stickers? Maybe you could put one on your nose.
The years you made it clear that the time of Christ was near, though the people couldn't see what Messiah ought to be. Though your word contained a plan, they just could not understand. That's Elijah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a beard. See his beard. There's his nose, and that's his...
Oh, I see.
Yeah, see his beard is kind of flowing in the wind and everything. Elijah taken up into heaven, the fiery chariot. Huh? Well, that's Elisha. That's the other prophet that took Elijah's place. And he was left, and there's Elijah, you know. And he learned about sheep, and the Lord is my shepherd. Mm-hmm. March 3rd, you just got that yesterday, huh?
In the beginning, we couldn't trust her with anything. She was locked up at night. We had alarms on the door at night so she wasn't sneaking around doing things with the other children. We don't worry about that anymore. There's no alarm on her door at night now. She sleeps in the same room with my own daughter, and I trust her that much. She brushes the dogs, and I trust her that much. Because she has earned that trust. She's learned it. She has a heart, and she has a love inside, and she feels bad when she does something now. In the past, because she didn't have a conscience, she didn't feel anything when she did something bad. There was just no feeling there. And now she does feel bad, and it shows in her face. I believe that Beth can make it. She's got a really bright mind. She's got a good heart now, which has done a lot of healing. She's got a really super set of parents. They're powerful, they're knowledgeable, they're motivated. She's done a lot of good work with you in therapy, with Cannell and with myself. She wants to heal, and that's the #1 key. And she wants to heal because she has a family that really cares about her, and she wants to be with them.
animal therapy also helped her empathize. In the controlled environment, Beth was showing signs of improvement and was even beginning to develop a differentiation between good and bad. At home, she also had to feed various farm animals and seemed to respond to affection. She laughed and interacted with other living beings and even hugged her therapist. Gradually, Beth began to have more contact with other children, was sent to school, became friends at church, and began participating in a choir. With less than a year of therapy, Beth's attitude changed radically.
Do you know where that anger came from?
That's when my birth dad hurt me. I had it all inside, and I remembered it, and I started doing it.
And what did that do when it was inside you?
It made me want to hurt people really bad.
And who did you hurt?
My brother, my mom and dad, and animals. And animals.
Who did it hurt the most?
My brother.
Who did it hurt the most?
Me.
Why don't you tell me that?
It hurt me the most.
How did it hurt you the most?
Because when I hurt other people,
It had only been a couple of months since Beth had admitted that her wish was to murder her brother and her parents, but the change was resounding. The girl expressed regret for how she had treated her brother. She no longer harmed herself and lamented for having hurt people. After passing through the residence, Beth began to feel empathy and regretted having hurted her loved ones.
I'm burning my good self.
How do you feel right now, Beth?
Sad.
It's kind of tough to talk about, isn't it?
Yes.
It is.
Beth gave her last interview for this film in December of 1989. Although she had made progress, she would still need extensive therapy. Not all abused children are as deeply scarred as Beth, but all abused children suffer a profound hurt for the rest of their lives. The road to recovery is long and hard for the abused child. There are more than 1 million new victims of child abuse in America every year.
Over the years, we can see Beth as a person with the capacity to empathize and to be aware of the consequences of her actions. Obviously, her apparent evil had its genesis in the continued abuse of which she was a victim as a baby, and her case serves to illustrate the dire consequences of physical and psychological abuse at a young age. Currently, Beth leads a normal life and works as a nurse. Her professional merits have earned her several awards. This case leads us to the following conclusions: the importance of good parenting, especially in critical periods of the child. But it also tells us about the effectiveness, at least in this case, of psychological therapy, even in cases of extreme gravity and that may seem irreconcilable. This total psychological recovery of small Beth could be achieved by raising awareness to the child about their actions, to mend their self-esteem and build the habits and social behavior functional, for example, getting to accept certain standards and to manage, channel, and understand the reason for their anger.